Hi, how are you? Today I will explain how to solve a turning points equation or stationary points. It's called turning points or stationary points. Look at this equation. We have a curve. This curve given y equals x cubed minus 3x plus 4. And he asked me to work out the two stationary points. When I say stationary points, it means turning points. We will use differentiation. The main rule for differentiation, if you have y equals ax to the power of n, it's to find dy over dx, which is the gradient, difference of y over difference of x. We will put the power down, so a times n, this power n, I will put it down, multiplied by a, and then subtract 1 from the power. So this is the main rule for differentiation. Okay, so if we have y equals the equation of the curve, y equals x cubed minus 3x plus 4. First of all, we need to differentiate this. So I will say dy over dx. I will put the power down. So we have a coefficient of x cubed is 1. So 1 times 3 is 3. X to the power of 2. I'm using this rule. And the differentiation of negative 3x is negative 3. So negative 3, and the derivative of 4 is 0. So we will not put anything, or you can put 0 as the derivative of 4. The derivative of negative 3x is negative 3. Always if you have y equals ax, so x has the power 1, dy over dx is the coefficient of x, which is a. Okay? So now the stationary points, it means the maximum or minimum points, or it's called turning points. Sometimes it's called turning points. What I mean by turning points, suppose we have a curve like this curve, and the curve drawn on the xy plane. If you look at this point, the maximum point, if I ask you to draw a tangent, touch the curve at this point, the tangent will be parallel to x-axis. Look at this tangent. Is parallel to the x-axis. And if I ask you to draw a tangent, touch the curve at the minimum point, also the tangent will be parallel to what? To x-axis. Look at this tangent, also parallel to what? To x-axis. Any line, any horizontal line parallel to x-axis, the gradient is 0. So dy over dx equals to 0, where at this point, which is the minimum point because the tangent parallel to x-axis, and at the maximum point because the tangent is parallel to x-axis. Because any tangent parallel to x-axis has a gradient 0. So for this reason, we can say at stationary points, always the gradient will be 0. So I can see here, I can say that the gradient is 0. What is the gradient? I mean dy over dx. So just solve this equation, 3x squared, the derivative, minus 3 equals to 0. How to solve this equation? I will put 3. This is a quadratic equation. You can solve it by factorizing. You can solve it by formula. You can solve it by completing squares. I will use factorizing. I will put 3 common factor. So inside we have x squared minus 1. But if you look at this factorization is not completely. So for this reason, you have to factorize again as a difference of two squares, x minus 1, x plus 1 equals to what? To 0. Product of 3 terms, 1, 2, 3 terms is 0. طبعا 3 is not 0. معناته مين اللي بده يكون 0? x minus 1 is 0, so x is 1. Or x plus 1 equals to 0, so x is what? Negative 1. So we have x is 1, I will put it here as an x coordinates, or x is negative 1, I will put it as a y, as an x coordinates, another stationary points, because we have two stationary points. But what about y? How to find the y coordinates? What is y here? What is y here? We have to substitute these 2 points in the main curve. So if x equals 1, y as in the equation 1 cube minus 3 times 1, I replaced x by 1 in this equation, plus what? Plus 4. So the answer, 1 minus 3 is negative 3 plus 4 equals to what? To 1. 1 minus 3 is negative 2. Negative 2 plus 4 is 2, sorry. This is 2. 1 minus 3 is negative 2. Negative 2 plus 4 is 2. So the y coordinates is 2 when x is 1. What about when x is negative 1? I will substitute again in the curve. If x equals negative 1, so what is y? Negative 1 cube minus 3 times negative 1 plus what? Plus 4. طبعا negative 1 cube is negative 1. Negative 3 times 1 is a 3. 3 minus 1 is 2. 2 plus 4 is 6. So here the coordinates is 6. Now, which one is maximum? Which one is minimum? We have two stationary points. Which one is maximum? Which one is minimum? This is the part B of the question. If you look at the part B of the question, he will always ask you determine the nature of a stationary points. I will take this question to continue the same question here. Now he will ask me determine the nature of stationary points. Now let's remember why it was x cubed. If you remember, x cubed minus 3x plus what? Plus 4. When you differentiate dy over dx is 3x squared minus 3. And if you differentiate the second derivative, we use it as a test to determine the nature of a stationary points, either maximum or minimum. You have to differentiate again this function. Yeah, how to differentiate this function again? So 3x squared, it will be 2. I will put 2 down. 2 times 3, it will be 6x. And the derivative of negative 3 is 0. You don't need to write it as a 0. Now you have two stationary points. You have x equals 1 and x equals negative 1. If you remember, we have two stationary points. The x coordinates, it was 1 and negative 1. So when x is 1, substitute it in the second derivative. 6 times 1, it will be 6, which is bigger than 0. So the point 1 and 2 is minimum. Always remember that. If the second derivative, always, when you differentiate again and substitute the stationary points inside the second derivative, if the answer bigger than 0, the point is minimum. But if the second derivative d squared y over dx squared less than 0, so the point is what? Is maximum. And this will happen with the next point. The next point is when x is negative 1. 6 times negative 1, I'm substituting here in the second derivative. Always you have to substitute in the second derivative to determine the nature of the stationary points. So 6 times negative 1 is negative 6. This is less than 0. So we can say about the second point, which is negative 1 and 6, as a maximum point. Why? Because the second derivative is less than 0. Here the second derivative is positive. I say the point is minimum. The second derivative is negative. The point is what? Is maximum. This is the differentiation, how to use it to find the turning point. Okay? Thank you.